what it's like living with home buyer's regret. And I want you guys to do me a favor. And seriously, you, the person that's listening to this right now, imagine just for a second needing or being forced to sell your house while being upside down. And think about the reasons why, you guys, you would be forced. It's never a good thing to be forced to sell, but it happens every single year. Whether it's from just unimaginable unaffordability, whether it's death, medical, divorce, job relocation, and things of that nature. Can you guys imagine coming to the closing table when you're about to sell your house with $30,000? Think about that, guys. Do you have that money? Can you afford an extra $30,000? And if your answer is yes, well, can you afford $250,000? Can you afford to waste that much money to get out from underneath your house? And for one, guys, I am sick and tired of all of the foolish, reckless optimism about the housing market. And so what we're going to do today is Jack and I are going to go over a recent home buyer's remorse survey. And we're going to actually look at the recent home buyers and what they are going through. You guys, there is so much regret right now. And what Jack and I are going to do is we're going to try to find the lesson. We're going to see what is going on with people. Why is there so much remorse? And as consumers on the sideline, what can we do to not make that same mistake? And so I have Jack with us today with Nobody Special Finance. If you guys like this man, you guys know that he's on my channel all the time. Great guy, great journalist. He likes to put himself down. I hate it. I hate hearing you put yourself down, Jack. But this is it here, guys. Nobody Special Finance, some great stuff. He goes, a lot of details in the economy, housing market. He does have lives Monday through Friday at
What time?
8 a.m. Central,
Okay.
9 a.m.
Yep.
Eastern, Monday through Friday. That was a tongue. Jack knows I always mess that up. So anyways, guys, great guy. Jack, before we begin, do you have anything you want to start by saying?
I could just say home buyers regret. I mean, I could talk to you for an hour about home buyers regret. I had my experience in my 20s with my first condo, and I could just tell you horror stories about my first house. I bought it in the summer of 2006, right before things started heading south. And I got trapped in the place, and it became a bottomless pit that I constantly poured money into. It was an unpleasant experience, but I did learn a lot. I think, once I paid the price, I came out of it smarter and wiser, and happy to share those horror stories with you guys today, because I know a lot of people are probably out there feeling that. And if they're not, I think within a few years, there's probably going to be a lot of people feeling it. So, good topic.
I mean, I think it is a good topic, because really we're going to ask the question, what are the risks of purchasing a home in the biggest bubble in U.S. history? What are some of those risks? And again, let's just go right to the horse's mouth directly, and see what these people are saying. I wanted to go back real quick, Jack, because you said something, and I want the viewers to understand the pain that you went through. You essentially purchased a home in 2006, which was the peak of the housing market. Can you tell the viewers what that process was like, and how long did it take for you to get your value back, and for you to put yourself in a situation to where you could sell without coming to the closing table with overwhelming amounts of money? Can you tell the viewers how that played out?
I can tell you, I never got the value back. That money was lost, and it never came back. I mean, I was able to recover some of it with the capital losses and my tax returns when I eventually sold it. But I bought in 2006. It was a modest place. It was just a 3-bedroom condo, nothing too fancy. I was a young guy in my 20s. This is back when I was still working as a commercial fisherman. That was a really good living working as a fisherman. It was really hard work. And the things I had to do, I couldn't do it now. It would kill me if I tried to do that job now. It just, now I'm in my 40s, couldn't handle it. But it was a really good living. I made really good money, and I poured it all into my first house. I had watched people who owned homes who were just making money hand over fist, and the guys flipping houses were like, just buy a house. It's so easy to make all this money. And then, of course, it took me time to accumulate my savings. And then when I finally had it, I did buy the place just in time for the bottom to fall out. So worst real estate timing ever. And all that money that I made fishing, all those things I had to do, putting my butt on the line, and it just went up. It all went up in smoke. And it wasn't just in the value of the home. The value in the home was obviously the main driver of the losses there. But then there was things like homeowners association fees, and I ended up having problems with the HOA, and we ended up in court with the HOA. And I sold it not until 2017. I ended up staying in that house for way too long. I did rent it out for a little while, so I was able to stop the bleeding a little bit there, but I was just breaking even on the rental. But I still had to write a check for more than 10 grand at closing to get rid of the place. And I have never been so happy to write a check in my life. When I finally sold the place, it felt so good to be free of it. It really was. It was a dark cloud that hung over me financially for 11 years. And yeah, it was not a great experience, but it was a valuable lesson. So, you can dwell on the losses and the mistakes that were made, or you can focus on how do we come out of it better. And I think that's what we can do here today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great story, Jack, and I want the viewers to know, like, hey, you have experience and expertise on buyer's remorse. And again, just to reiterate what you said, you purchased the home at the peak in 2006, and even after 11 years, viewers, listen, please, this is what I'm warning you about. A lot of people don't know what they don't know. After 11 years, Jack still did not have enough equity to close without having to come to the table with $10,000 after 11 years. That's what happens when the pendulum swings the other way like it is right now. If you're buying right now, more than likely you're buying at the peak. It will take you 5, 10, even potentially longer to recoup that money. It took Jack never even got it back after 11
And
years.
Travis, there was
Yeah.
tens of thousands of money I had to put into it too. Things like carpet and flooring and repairs and roof.
Did you get that money back?
No, the maintenance costs an additional sunk cost on top of the capital loss on just the home price itself. It was a financial nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, because not only are you trapped, you can't even make money renting it, so you're having to come out of pocket there. And then the maintenance, people like, dude, a water leak, air conditioning, roof, flooring, the foundation. There's so many different things, unfortunately, that can go wrong. Even if you have insurance, there's still so many out-of-pocket expenses. So, I got someone good, you guys. I got someone good. He went through a similar hardship as me. And what we're going to do, let me throw up the article real quick. This is from BuzzFeed. The name of this article is 31. Now, there's going to be 31 quotes here. The first quote is, "I should have stuck to renting. Revelations from real life homeowners with major regrets." So I'm going to read a couple of these for Jack right now. And then we're going to, again, you guys, just try to find the lesson here, right? Let's learn from other people's mistakes so we don't have to learn it the hard way ourselves. Like, for some reason, I always have to do it, seems like. But anyways, the first one is this, Jack. This is a recent homeowner. Homeowners associations are predatory. And you had a lawsuit with an HOA, and you don't want, an HOA coming after you. Obviously, that the amount of psychological, like, I'm pissed off, and unhealthiness that brings. Now, for a renter, it was never fun to get the dreaded, you'll pay $500 more next year if you re-sign your lease. I have no idea, where that's happening. But at least you have the option to up and move with relative ease. So remember that, guys, when you're renting, we could move. I moved myself. I had mold in the house that I was just at. I just up and left. I didn't have to spend a dime on that remediation. But at least you have the option to move. In our townhouse communities HOA, it's not uncommon for us to get hit with expensive assessments for work that needs to be done in the community. Not even your house. If some neighbor goes and messes up, the community area, everyone has to pay for that, right? You got some punk kids that, mess up the gate at the pool. You guys got to pay for that. Okay. But unlike getting hit with higher rent and being able to find a new home, they're stuck there as the owners paying for all of this. So, Jack, can you, what do you think the lesson is here? For me, the lesson is clear. A lot of people don't realize how potentially good they have at renting from an out-of-pocket expense. A lot of people don't realize, what does it mean trapped? Well, being trapped is when you want to move, but you can't, right? You got to want to move, but you can't. because if you don't want to move, then you're not trapped. So what do you see here, Jack?
So the HOA thing, I can tell you, oh my God, never again will I ever subject myself to an HOA, to a homeowners association. Now there are some people who want a hands-off approach to home ownership. They don't want to worry about lawn maintenance. They don't want to worry
Yeah.
about any of that stuff. They want it taken care of for them. And they also don't mind being told what to do. Me, I don't like being told what to do. I have something of an authority issue. All right. My HOA, first of all, over the 11 years that I owned my condo, my HOA fees increased by about 50% over that time frame. So it started out, it
Wow.
was only like $93 a month. It was over 150 by the time I left. So it's another expense that will continue to rise. And also, we're seeing some nightmare stories in Florida about HOAs.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that Oceanside condo collapse from a few years ago? Those people died
Yep.
when the building collapsed. Well, it turns out there was shoddy construction all over the Miami area in the 80s. A lot of that was probably had to do with the magic nose powder that was going around back then. But they're doing inspections now on these buildings as the fallout from this, and they're finding tens of millions of dollars in damages to these buildings. And some of these homeowners, these condo owners, are getting assessments for more than they paid for their home. Hundreds
Wow.
of thousands of dollars of assessments. And guys, this is not an option. You can't sue your way out of this. You can't not pay it. They'll end up taking your house from you. Now, the
Yeah.
other story with the HOA, and I know that was a big one. So I had two real problems with my homeowners association. It was a death of a thousand cuts at first. We don't like the sign you put on your door. We don't like the color of your curtains. We don't like the flowers you put there. Oh, the paint is chipping on your flower box out front, which it was like that when I bought the place. You need to replace your flower boxes. So like just these pesky letters in the mail that keep showing up. And every time I saw that pink paper, my blood pressure would skyrocket. And then I had a gazebo just outside of my end unit. I had a nice unit in my condo, and the gazebo was nice. It was right outside my door. The gazebo started to get run down. They tore down the gazebo and they replaced it with a concrete slab, which was a major reduction in the services they were giving me, while they were giving me additional fees, while they were sending me fines for my curtains. And finally, I just told them, I was like, you know what, guys, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. You're raising my fees. You're lowering my services. I said, I'm going to ignore every letter I get from you from now on until you guys start holding up your end, which me and my big mouth, I got myself into trouble. And at that point, I became a target for all of these box wine drinking Karens in the association who would just go around with their little clipboard. Oh, no, just taking little notes, looking at your house and writing things wrong that you did. And the pace of the violations quadrupled after I sent that nasty gram to the HOA, to the point where the fines accumulated so much that they took me to court. They sued me for $15,000.
Jeez.
And I went to an attorney and I'm like, this is bogus. These guys are doing this to me. Like, and they're not holding up their end. The attorney told me, just write them the check. He said, you're going to spend all this money to defend yourself in court and you're going to lose. Just write the check.
What great advice, huh, Jack? Just right.
Well, it's funny. The attorney that's sued me representing the association was a Republican state assemblyman. And the attorney, I didn't even realize this until after, the attorney that I went to consult was the Democrat who lost to him. So that was maybe I didn't pick the best guy to go to.
Well, here's the lesson, and I want to caution. First of all, guys, Jack. Okay.
By the way, I defended myself in court and won.
Yes,
I'm just going to throw that out there. So, but I don't recommend people do that. That was just
you are a stud. I've represented myself. I think honestly, I mean, our legal system, whoever has more money wins, it feels like. So, I mean, the more we can represent ourselves. But what I want the viewers to understand, Jack, well, first of all, I should have just led with Jack's story. Jack got sued for $15,000 from his HOA. You guys starting to understand, like, homeownership is not everything it's made up to be. It's actually very risky, and we have to like be prepared. But you guys, I also want to know this: if they would have won Jack and got that $15,000, that would have turned into a lien. And when the HOA has a right to put the fees and any money that you owe them, generally they have a right to put a lien on your house. And the problem, guys, is if they do that and you don't pay them and you're upset, like Jack's upset, like, don't tell me what to do, right? It's normal. They can foreclose on your house. So understand,
Yeah.
You will lose everything. They will take the house from you. More fees, more fines, more problems, more stress, more drama. So understand, you could turn your back to the HOA. You could do that. You could be irritated, but they have the potential, if you keep turning your back, to take your home away from you. So just
Can
think
I
about that, guys.
can I give you
Yeah.
one more real quick anecdote about these guys? And again, it's a horror story, I'm telling you. When I decided I was going to finally sell the place, after I had fought them in court and won because they made a mistake when they sued me, they didn't take me to arbitration first as they were required to, an obscure law reference that I found just because I was too stubborn to know what was good for me. I found that. I decided to replace my roof on the way out. I wanted to have a place to have a nice new roof. I wanted to be move-in ready in good condition to sell it quick. I had a shared roof with the nearby unit. The nearby unit had replaced their half of the roof. And so I decided to replace my half of the roof. And it was the same shingle that used to be there, the same shingle that was on the other half. And while the roofer was doing the work, Karen from the HOA showed up and orders my roofers to stop. She's outside screaming at my roofers that I hired. And I'm on the phone with the roofer and I'm saying, you're not working for this lady. Like, tell her where to put it and just get back to work. Trust me, I'll handle the HOA. So again, they slapped me with violations saying, well, last week we changed and now you need to use the Ridgeline H100 shingle instead of the shingle that was on your roof last week and is on the other half of your roof. They're saying, no, I need to use a different dimension shingle now, which would have meant the roof had two different shingles on it because it was a shared roof with the neighboring unit.
And Jack,
and I had already paid the roofer for the job.
Tell
So
the
I went into
viewers,
the
tell
HOA.
the viewers, yes. Here we go.
So I went into the
but
HOA.
first of all, wait. You guys first, Jack, don't try this at home.
Yeah, don't. I
Don't try this it's dangerous. But he did win.
I went into the HOA and I sat down with them at the meeting and I explained the story, and everybody at the association knew me. So they're all like, as soon as I walked in there. And I said, look, guys, I've already paid for the roof. And I just started running down all the money I had lost in this condo. And it was huge. And I told them, I said, I still have to write a very large check at closing to get out of this place. If I have to go back and pay to have my roof redone in order to make you guys happy, then I can't afford to sell this place. So you guys have two options. You can go ahead and you can press forward with this and force me to replace my roof, in which case I'm going to stay and we can continue to enjoy each other's company for years and years and years. Or you guys can look the other way, or you could look the other way and I'll leave and you'll be rid of me. Your call.
Okay.
And so basically they looked the other way. They gave me a one-time waiver on their new shingle rule just to get rid of me.
Yeah. But the thing is,
goody, and I left.
Like the premise here though, and what we want people to take away from that is like, look at the power. If you want, I mean, you use the word Karen, but if you, and it's funny you use that word because I've dealt with a similar situation where they've actually taken property of mine and put it in the back of their car and called me. And I'm like, you touched my what? You want me to call the police and file a report for theft? I mean, these people at the HOA, man. I mean, you're at the mercy of, like you
sign away so many of your rights at closing when you join an HOA.
I think the viewers got that. Let's move on now. A couple more, couple more statements here from recent homeowners, and this is pretty powerful as well. I want to read these two right here. Okay, so the first homeowner says, I think for me, and this is all buyer's remorse. Okay, I think for me, it was the realization that I'm not quite as handy as I thought, and I don't have the time to do the regular maintenance that needs to be done. Either way, I end up biting the bullet and calling in a pro. And here's what I've learned about that. Take the amount that you think it should cost and triple it, or add $1,000 and you'll be in the bar park. So yeah, it was a lot nicer when the landlord took care of all that stuff. So again, the renter's calling the landlord, right? When you own, you got no one to call. Here's the second one, tree removal. I felt I was on an episode of some aspirational HGTV show when we closed on our cabin in the woods. Then one day we realized the aging trees that are surrounding our cabin could quite literally, and I'm in Texas, this happens, quite literally fall at any time. The first tree cost $4,000 to remove. There was also a second and third tree removal for a total of $12,000. I really think this is a good one, Jack, again, because this is something that really applies to my area. I'm surrounded by trees, and one of the issues I want viewers to understand about trees is not only that it's expensive, but if you don't take care of these big mature trees most of the time, the roots will cause damage to your house. And if not the foundation, I've seen those roots go into the sewer systems, the pipes underground. I mean, those trees can be a massive problem. Any comments there, Jack?
Yeah, a couple of things on trees. Number one, tree removal is incredibly dangerous work. And
Yeah.
fun fact, being a timber cutter is the second deadliest job in the world behind a commercial fisherman. So I know something a little bit about
Wow.
dangerous work. It's not something you want to do yourself. You can really mess yourself up. Even just trimming branches, a lot of people really clobber themselves just trimming branches. A lot of weight up in the air. You're cutting it loose. Hey, it falls and you're standing right under it. Also, you can do
Yeah.
damage to nearby equipment and things like that. So tree removal is one of those things where even if you're reasonably handy, like I'm pretty handy myself, I don't mess around with that. I have the pros come
Yeah.
and do trees every time.
They,
Another
they
thing
could
to
be
watch out for.
1 ton, Jack. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like a little a branch this wide. If it's the center of the bark, that could weigh 100 pounds. That falls on your head. You're dead. Falls on your roof. It's a hole. What were you saying?
There's another thing to watch out for with trees that could be an unforeseen expense, at least in the Northeast, and it's widespread in the Northeast and it's spreading across the country. There's this invasive species called the emerald ash borer. It's this beetle that targets ash trees. So if you have an ash tree on your property, within a couple of years, you're going to have to pay to cut it down because this beetle is wiping out the species in the United States. I mean, if there's an ash tree now, chances are it's already dead and it just hasn't fallen over yet, or the bark is already starting to peel off. I've seen it. My neighbors, we were lucky enough. The contractor built our house. They put red oaks in our front yard, which means the leaves are a little worse because they fall slowly all year long. But everybody on the block who had the ash trees put in had to pay somebody to cut down these big, giant, dead ash trees. So that's another thing to watch out for with the trees and the unexpected maintenance costs.
Yeah, good one. All right, here's another one. What do you think about this, Jack, right here? Let me read this from a recent owner with regret. I regretted my purchase as soon as the property bill came. Oh boy, I was prepared for renovations and appliance replacements, but the property taxes in our area are roughly what we expect to spend next year when we replace our furnace. So their taxes went up in are as much as to repair a furnace. How did they not see this? Probably because the astronomical skyrocketing tax liabilities. You guys, the reason why tax liabilities are skyrocketing is because in order to calculate your tax liability, the county has to come up with something called an assessed value. So all of these homeowners like, yeah, I got $150,000 in equity. Guess what? You're paying money now, taxes on the equity that you're not even using. So congratulations, guys, on your $150,000 in equity that you are paying for until you don't have it anymore. And you'll still be paying for it because it takes time for the taxes to go down. But let's keep going. We live in a nice area and want to support that. But taxes are already taking out of our paychecks. Then we have to spend even more on property taxes. Jack, you want to go into property taxes now and maybe what lessons that you've learned about that?
So property taxes, we moved into a pretty high property tax area when we bought the place we live in right now. That's your schools, is your property taxes. The biggest input is your schools. And if you're like me, you're a parent and your school system is important to you, then you almost want higher property taxes just so you can be in a better school district. And for me, we have one of our kids with special needs. So it was particularly important because we couldn't get what our kid needed from private school. The special needs schooling just isn't that good in private schools. So, we kind of intentionally went for that. Now with property taxes, there's two factors. There's the assessed value, but there's also the tax rate. And both of those could be at risk of going up because the chances are your assessed value is a few years old, which means your house is being taxed based on what it was worth maybe in 2016 or 2017. It's worth a lot more now. So the town can come force a reassessment and your property tax bill is going to go up. But the other thing, especially if you're in an urban area, if you're in an area where a lot of the tax base comes from commercial real estate, you better watch out. You've all seen those headlines about the buildings that are going down by $100 million, $50 million. Well, your city is going to have to make up that budget shortfall somewhere. They're going to lean extra heavy on residential property taxes to make up for that. So if you're
Good
in an
one.
urban area, chances are your property taxes are going to go up big time in the years ahead.
Solid, bro. Solid. You know what? I'm gonna do a video tomorrow with my son, and we're gonna cover like abandoned and vacated projects. And you're 100%. If the state's not getting that tax revenue, and they need money,
We could
probably
cut
gonna. I
spending
mean,
or we could take it somewhere else. They'll take it somewhere else.
granted, I'm in
Yeah.
Texas. And a couple more things, guys. To Jack's point, those two things. Okay, the tax rate, assessed value. No, in my state in Texas, let me know if it's in your state. I can fight my and protest my assessed value every year, and I try to do that every year. Usually, I get an automatic deduction in my assessed value just for going through that process and you know what I mean, in that whole and just getting to the point of protest. But also, I want to encourage people to file. In my area, we can file something called a residential homestead that limits our tax liability, and it's very big in Texas. Texas has very good homesteads depending on the county. So those are definitely two things that homeowners should be doing. Anything else you want to add to that, Jack?
Yeah, I would just add that, a couple of years ago, you'd always get those letters in the mail from the law firm. We think you're paying too much for taxes and we want to challenge it. And we'll take that on spec for 50% of the money we save you in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
all went away. So the fact that those aren't going around anymore probably tells you that your property taxes are going to be going up. If and when we do see the residential real estate market start to correct to the downside and we see those price levels start to fall, I think the signal to be, hey, maybe it's time to talk to your town about getting a lower property tax bill will be when those legal letters start showing up. When the law firms start reaching out to you to challenge your property tax bill in exchange for a cut of the savings, that's when it's time to get involved with the town. But for right now, it's probably not a good time to do something like that because you're probably going to end up with a higher assessment, not a lower one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on topic. I also, Jack, I believe in the self empowerment to save money, and like, I mean, you can pretty much learn everything on YouTube. I don't think we should pay those people. I understand why, because most people don't have access to MLS. Couple more here. Let's read this next one, number 6. About 3 years after moving in, we found out that not only was our house built with faulty pipes, that hurts my soul, but we had also missed the window for a class action lawsuit to replace them. Oh, over 35 years, we spent tens of thousands of dollars on leaks, repairs, and restorations. I now live in an amazing apartment in a world famous historical building that someone else takes care of, and I'm selling that miserable money pit. Couldn't be happier or more grateful. So the reason I have this comment up here, you may not want to touch on this so much, is yes, the renting's more convenient. You're free. You can even potentially move to an area that you want to live. But I want to warn, and yes, it's a money pit, but I want to warn people as well, Jack, not to get stuck, not to get too comfortable renting, because we eventually want people, again, once the housing market gets more balanced, once people understand what a great deal is, we want people to own. It's just right now, no. So my warning there is don't get too comfortable renting. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to get too, I mean, obviously, over time, historically, home ownership has been one of the most powerful tools for building wealth over time, that forced savings by paying down the mortgage. But right now, it's still significantly cheaper to rent than it is to own. So watch that crossover. When you see the cost to own get cheaper than the cost to rent, usually it's because home prices have fallen. That's when it's time to start thinking about re-entering the home market, assuming you've taken preparations. And the whole thing about the pipes, man, that's the gift that keeps on giving. Because when you have
Oh,
pipe problems, water is so destructive. Now you're talking mold,
yep.
insulation, drywall, paint, maybe your floors start buckling, things like that. So water problems, that's another case where you DIY guys think twice about doing your own work on your plumbing, because man, that could really come back to haunt you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I have water damage in the house that I own. All right, so let's go on to from the hurricane that just came. We're talking to our insurance because I think we had 2 or 3 leaks in our house, which sucks. I mean, it's good because I'll probably get partially new roof, but what's that mean for my insurance premium? Now my payments are going to be even higher. So yeah, it's awesome. I'll probably get a new roof. I needed that, right? I want to take advantage of that. but dang it, now my insurance is probably going to be $500, $600, $700 more per year.
You
Now
know,
this is a
Travis,
good,
I've actually
yeah, go ahead.
heard I've actually heard cases where a roof replacement brings your insurance cost down. I've heard a lot
Yes,
of people say that they replaced their roof and their insurance bill actually went down. So if you are
yes,
one of
yes.
those people that's in that situation,
Let me
that could
explain.
be an unexpected benefit. So something to think about.
Let me explain how that works. For an example, if I were to buy a house and the roof, because I've actually just had this happen, and I canceled the contract, and the roof is 24 years old. So, and it was legit. I put an offer on a house. The roof was 24 years old. When I went to shop the insurance, the premium was $5,800 because they know they need to replace the roof. Right? They know that roof is falling apart. But the thing, like Jack is saying, is it's $5,800 because that roof is like trash. And so when I get the roof replaced, my new insurance now, because I have a new roof, should be less potentially. But every situation is different, and you guys got to watch out. Now, in my situation, being that my roof is only like 7 years old, and it's still, I think it's once it's 10 years they start hitting you. Um, I'm probably going to get a higher premium because I have a new house, and now my new house that I originally bought new has a insurance claim filed against it, which you can find out in something called a clue report. So if you're in the process of purchasing a house, do a clue report. It will show you what claims were made on that house. A clue report is a good way to see if there's anything wrong with that house as far as insurance. Now, anything you want to add there, Jack? Or do you want me to read
Just
this
say
last? Or this
when dealing with roofers, don't go with the low bid. A roof is so important. Get several bids. Do your research on the company that's doing the job because a bad roof job is a homeowner's nightmare. So
Yeah. All right, let me read this one. This one's pretty crazy to think about. Being a long-term renter in the Northeast, I never really thought about the HVAC or the air conditioning, that or furnace or whatever. That winter reeks on a home. Clearly, I took a lot of my landlord's regular maintenance for granted because I'm sick of what I now have to do each winter to prevent my pipes from freezing up and potentially bursting. My first month of home ownership in Texas, Jack, my freaking pipes burst at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I don't know if the viewers know anything about waking up at 4 a.m. to freezing cold weather and having to stick your hands in freezing cold water to turn the water off, but that does not make you a happy person. It does not make you a happy person at all. But this goes on, and every time we see temps hit 0 degrees or below, I'm hit with a wave of anxiety that our pipes will somehow manage to burst, costing us thousands of dollars in repairs. So let's talk about this. Let me know if it pertains in your area. It does mine, and what we do is certain precautions, like literally anytime in Houston that we have a freeze warning, we need to wrap our pipes. So we wrap and insulate our pipes outside, specifically the sprinkler system. It's like always that sprinkler system, freaking every time. And then we put a slight drip on our faucets so that water stays running. Anything you want to add there, Jack?
sometimes something as simple as just open the cabinets under your sink to allow the ambient heat from your kitchen air to warm the area under the cabinets can be enough to stop the pipes from freezing. That's just I've grown up in the Northeast. I've been here the whole time, so I live with that. One of the things I have to do, it breaks my heart every year, is I have to winterize my pool house. I have to go down to my basement, change the valve configuration, hook up an air compressor, blow out the lines. I got to pour antifreeze in the tank of the toilet and plunge it down. And it's heartbreaking because I love my backyard in the summertime, and it's like, okay, those cold winter months are coming, but it's one of those things. It takes about a half a day every year. I have to do it, and you want to live in a big house, you're going to get big house maintenance to come along with it. And if you don't do it, you will rue the day because, man, ice damage, pipe damage. See that earlier comment about how it leads to drywall and paint and insulation and mold and everything else. You just don't want to mess around when it comes to water. So cross all T's, dot all I's when it comes to winterization, especially if you live in a cold area.
Okay, good one. All right, here's another one here. Number 9, I will run for the hills the next time I see lovingly restored by caring owners. In the description of any real estate listing, he was well intentioned. I give him that. But you can't renovate an entire house on good intentions alone. Every last slab of drywall cracks and separates every winter due to faulty insulation. We had our inspector in the summer, so we were totally unprepared with any sort of liner under the shower. We quickly realized we were flooding our basement
Oh,
daily. We fixed so many of these issues over the past years, but I would have saved $20,000 renting at the very least. And then there's a picture here of the mold. You guys, the mold can turn into, from a $2,000 problem to a $50,000 problem if you ignore it. That mold spreads like cancer. So you want to watch out for that. But one of the things, the warnings here for me, Jack, is like you can't buy real estate based on good intentions. If you're buying stuff based on good intentions, then you're disregarding the important stuff. You're disregarding, the fundamentals of why you should buy real estate. And then another thing I want to warn people about, Jack, is the fact that even if people get an inspection, that inspection, it will miss things. Just like what happened here. Anything you want to add there?
yeah, just that really good home inspection is worth every penny, right? That's one of the things you never want to skimp on expenses there. I mean, I see all these stories of these, I call them the door bros, the guys bragging about how many houses they own, talking about just paying cash sight unseen for houses. And I'm like, hey, maybe it works for them, maybe not. I would never, ever do it because something like that, you find out you got to re-drywall the whole house. That's a huge expense. And, I think a really good home inspection, the peace of mind, and it will pay. I mean, if it catches something like that, imagine if the home inspector had caught that, hey, the guy used nails when he should have used screws when he installed the drywall. I don't know how he would tell that, but maybe a good home inspector can spot that without actually digging into this stuff. Could have saved you a lot of money. And at the very least, maybe you just decide, well, I'm going to live with this because it comes with the house, but maybe I can capture some of that recovery up front with a seller concession at closing instead of finding out a year later and having to write a check for it.
Yeah, I mean, inspections go a long way, and an inspection that a lot of people don't use, and it's in the purchase contracts here in Texas, is a hydrostatic test. The one and only client that I've ever represented from YouTube, we did a hydrostatic test, and sure enough, a root from a tree, right, from a tree, had pierced the city sewer system. And so the potential to have the sewer back up into the house, and anyways, they ended up walking away because the current owner was like, "Oh, it's the city's fault. We don't want to touch it." And we're like, "Peace, homie. We know what
Yeah.
we got, which is money, and you need it, seller, because this is a buyer's market, and I'm the realtor, and I'm rolling out the red carpet. Let's walk away from these dudes. We're going to be bullies. We're going to be mean. If we're not being mean, if we're not being bullies, if we're not finding a great deal, then I am not representing you." And that's why I've only represented one person, because most people are not doing the things that we're suggesting. And I want to read this. This is our last one, Jack. This is a really, really good one here. And this is a huge problem. There's a huge problem with consumers. All right. This is what this says. I was misinformed about home equity and how it works. I'm going to read that again. Because I know some of the viewers think they know this, and you don't know this. Comps, subdivision analysis. These things are important. Wedge, cash flow. But anyways, I'm going to read this again. I was misinformed, like most of everyone, about how home equity works. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but they shouldn't be. They should not be embarrassed, and they should learn, right? Like, don't be, if you're embarrassed, then learn so you're not embarrassed. But I thought you'd see every dollar back on the repairs and upgrades you do to your home. And I couldn't have been more wrong. We put in $100,000 into our first home over the course of 10 years. We sold it after 10 years, you guys, at a loss of $25,000. They put themselves in a situation to where that new owner didn't think those upgrades were $100,000. And they ran into a situation where it didn't even appraise for that, because you do not get dollar for dollar back on almost all upgrades and renovations. You do on some sweat equity, especially if it's sweat equity. But regardless, guys, even though the cost of the property in our neighborhood skyrocketed over the last 10 years, so even though the property skyrocketed, it didn't matter in this case because they spent too much money on their home. That's freaking crazy. And so as this guy is putting in $100,000, this entire time, Jack, he's thinking, well, I'm going to get that back the whole time. And so rude awakening, instead of him getting $100,000 back in profit, he now has to pay an extra $25,000, which means he didn't put $100,000 into his house. He put $125,000 into his house, but he only got to enjoy $100,000 of that. Jack, what do you see here?
I see the same mentality that I had in 2006, right? Phase 1, buy house. Phase 3, profit. And never really asked questions. Like there's something in between there. And, timing is everything. And I don't know about the individual in this case, the timing that he went through. I'm guessing it's probably something similar where he probably bought before the GFC and sold after. But home ownership is not a one-way ticket to grand wealth. And I think there's a lot of people who are out there probably just giving up and buying because home prices have continued to rise for these past 4 years when, 4 years ago, everybody, self-included, was screaming that homes are overvalued. And they were 4 years ago. And they're even more so now. But the concept of doom spending, I see people doing that with consumers, and I see people throwing in the towel and just saying, oh, well, homes are going to go up forever. I'm just going to go ahead and buy this house at these obscene prices. I've been there. I've done that. And I regretted it for over a decade. And it sounds like this homeowner, the same exact story.
Okay.
Minus
so
the lawsuits with the HOA and the roof and Karen.
I think you should write into BuzzFeed, Jack. I think you should write into them. You got yourself a heck of a story of buyer's regret. Now, let's wrap this up. Let's do a little bit of a conclusion based on everything we just read. Let's kind of just simplify this on up. What can we tell citizens right now, consumer citizens right now, that are maybe they have anxiety, or maybe they're like, we ain't touching an overpriced house, or maybe they're like, oh my God, I'm a loser because I can't buy a house. Who knows what they're going through? But go ahead and how can you wrap all this up, wrapping paper, put a bow on there and give it to the viewers?
I know the frustration. I've lived the frustration of watching homes skyrocket in value while you're unable to buy. And then I gave into the temptation to buy at the top, and I regretted it for years. And I see that playing out again here. I see people frustrated because, some people have just given up on the dream of home ownership altogether. I don't think you want to do that, because I do think there will be an opportunity to get back in. But, also keep in mind, we could be at the start of a new 30 to 40 year cycle of interest rates actually going higher consistently over time, whereas for the last 40 years, they just consistently went lower, endlessly propping up home prices. Now inflation is more of a problem. So, I think the market rewards patience here. I really do. Where the market has punished patience for the last few years, I do think things are starting to change right now. The cost of ownership is at an obscene high relative to what incomes are. The home market is frozen solid right now. Very few transactions happening because nobody can afford to buy, and nobody really wants to sell because they can't afford to buy anything else at these interest rates. But unemployment is rising, and unemployment rising means involuntary home sellers. And a lot of these institutions that bought thousands and thousands, some case millions of single family homes, they're all losing money on those investments. They're all going to turn into home sellers as long as the government doesn't bail them out again. It's a big if. Lower prices are coming. I don't know when. I don't have a crystal ball. But right now, you're being paid to wait because it's cheaper to rent. And so take comfort in the fact that you're making the right decision. It's okay to be frustrated at how long it's taking. I think a lot of people share in that, but don't give in to that frustration and make the decision that I made that is going to result in 10 years of regret, 11 years of regret, and 6-figure losses. It's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, guys, remember, every market is different in ways, because home prices aren't going up in Texas. Actually, in Austin it's down. San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, and in fact the only major metro area in Texas that's not down year over year is Houston, and it's barely even up. And on a national average, we say home prices keep going up. But Jack, when we look at the 2-year peak to peak median sales price of Redfin, May to May, June to June, houses have only gone up in 2 years $6,000. And so if the average house is about $350,000, $6,000 is not going to get you anything. It's just it's not going to get you a thing. So again, I think even us, we have to be careful on what we're looking at on headlines, because we see new record, but they're revising the data down. And what is the new record? Oh, $6,000 in 2 years? Like, are we really celebrating that? When everyone else is suffering because of PE ratio, payment to income. I mean,
Just the maintenance
it's
costs of the average home
yes,
have risen more than $6,000 over that time. So it's not like you would have been better off buying 2 years ago, in the average market is what that's telling me, because one pipe leak, one tree has to come down, and there it
dead,
goes. Yeah, all that money's
done.
gone. So
But all the money's gone anyways. Any of those things that you mentioned is just going to make it worse because it costs more than $6,000 to sell and refinance.
yeah.
So they're already upside. So by their own data, these people are already upside down. Why are they celebrating? You only made $6,000. It cost 18 to sell. But yet you're paying $1,500 more a month to own versus rent. Okay, guys, it is what it is. But here's the thing I want to leave the viewers with. You guys, just listen to what I'm saying. Just listen to what I'm saying. I made a free class to help you guys just find out and learn where's the red flag. Where's that red? Because I'm looking for red flags. Like everyone, I'm sick of the over optimism. Like, where's that red flag? What does the red flag look like? And how do I get around the red flag? I made a course for free for you guys. Don't be these people with regret. Real estate is so risky. And the more work you guys do up front, the less risk you will have of home ownership. But the least amount of preparation you do, the more blind you are when you're going to purchasing, the higher risk you're in. And you guys don't want to do what I did. I mean, I had a horrible, very stressful life for 9 years, Jack. Totally miserable. Nine years I was miserable, depressed for 9 years. My life, bro. So, I should have been more patient, I should have rearranged my life when I had the chance. By the time the recession hit, I didn't have that chance anymore. And I hope people understand that they do not have to rush in to buy a house. And that's going to do it, Jack. Really appreciate your time, Jack. You guys don't forget, go to Nobody's Special Finance on YouTube. And don't forget, you guys, DNN Saturday live is Jack, Melody, and I, where we go over a lot more than just the housing market. And other than that, guys, comment below. Let us know if you have buyer's remorse. Not everyone does. Some people, House Hacker, Jeff, Tom, they purchase houses and they don't have the regret. So understand that. But most, like a high percentage, 90, they do have regret. And you got to ask yourself this question: why? And then ask yourself this: how? How do I not make that mistake? And if you guys are asking why, you guys are asking how, I think you're going to be all right. And other than that, guys, if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.